Hey, I'm Cyclone, and today I wanted to give you an update on my Tornado Shot Deadeye because I did change quite a few things and I thought those changes might be interesting for other people as well, so I wanted to give them to you so you can adjust them if you like them too. Now, it's a notable change that you will see is I have a Berserk, I have Petrified Blood, I don't have a totem setup, but I get to those in a bit. I would first like to cover the passive tree, because I found something out that is super hilarious. Maybe not the best thing to do because I'm spending quite a few passive points for it, but it's super hilarious. I just wanted to do it. So we knew about the Ramako Makanga tattoo spot on this node and this node, but if you grab the keystone here, which usually is perfect agony, the flask charge gain node here, and then the stat node here, and the dual wielding node here, and the spell suppression node here, you can use a tattoo of the Ramako Makanga here and here. So this is +4 with tattoos, plus the +2 we get from the tree already, plus the +2 we get from the Sensei, plus the +1 from the quiver, sets me at 10 projectiles without a dying sun. And I find that pretty hilarious. Now, to use this properly, we need to use here this tattoo of Makanui, which allows us to reroll this keystone. Now, there are two nodes that are actually beneficial to us and a few nodes that do nothing for us. For example, this Wind Dancer, which is blocked by the Brutal Restraint here, is something that we can use. Or we can use Call to Arms because it's an Enduring Crime, which we want, as to why we want this in this specific setup I get to later. And then there are a few things that will just do nothing for us, but they will also not hinder us. Some things like Iron Grip, something like Imbalanced Guard, which is nice to have. Something like Necromantic Aegis, where is it? Conduit, or Rune Binder, because we're not using totems anymore. These things will just not do anything for our build, but they also wouldn't disable our build. So this is something that we can also accept there, but it would then be a wasted point that we just use for the +1 projectile. So once we have that, we can grab this, and then we can grab this one here. The spell suppression node is actually not a wasted point, because depending on the state of the build, in this very specific variation, we actually do need the spell suppression we get from here. Again, as to why I come in a moment. Because I don't have this spell suppression mastery anymore because we are using a strength node. But this is a new variation with tattoos, which I just found funny and I wanted to do it. In case you don't go core, now I have a character that has +4 on these tattoos that I can just send to standard. One final tattoo that I've gotten was a loyalty tattoo of Awana. When we get hit by a big enemy, that any unique enemy that uses a spell, we actually get the additional spell suppressed damage. So right now we at 53, and we guaranteed to suppress the spell damage. So we get hit by a big enemy, we get, let's say Seeing Exarch, his flamethrower, and we get hit by it, and then spell suppression kicks in. And because we are already using 4 Ramako tattoos, this one will result in a lot more spell suppression because it's already another 80% buff effect. So it's almost, it should be about, it should be 18% spell suppression damage on top of our 53. So we take a lot less damage from spells, which does help quite a bit. Also helps things like Omnian maps, it helps like the Templar, it helps at the Maracas boss. So it's just a nice thing to have. Now of course there is a cooldown on it, we're not going to have it all the time, but it's going to save our ass here and there, so that's pretty good. Finally, the change that I did, I swapped out my pressure point quick getaway for a special reserve spike concoction. I noticed that my Alchemist Genius, when you use a flask that I have on my Forces of Nature, isn't rocking consistently enough. So I grabbed a spike concoction, which is guaranteed to proc when I press my flask, so I have it in maps a lot more consistently. And then I have a special reserve. That was the only other notable that really does anything for our build, which gives us regeneration. And because we're using Chaos Spirit, instead gives us rage regeneration. Chaos Spirit I get 2 after the gems. And that is basically the three changes. As for the gem changes, you will see now that my auras is actually Grace, Determination, Petrified Blood, Vitality, Precision, Defiance banner. Now I did that change because I noticed that I didn't really needed the damage from Anger or the speed from Haste. It wasn't really affecting my map clear time and my looting time as much as having a very tanky Berserk setup will do. Because now I'm using Petrified Blood, Grace, Determination, and the Berserk, which I have up almost all the time. I have a very tanky mapper. Now as you can see, I got to level 99 and 25%. And that is basically just from running the Legion. That 1% at the end, I did some trials yesterday night, so there's this 1%. I was at 24% after the Legion maps. I died twice, and once was due to stupidity. I tried to force an immunity shrine, so I just walked on it, surrounded by enemies, tried to click on it so I can kill. I shot my arrows, the game lagged into oblivion because of so many projectiles, because of nothing dying, and I died due to the lag. And the second time was even more stupidity. I stood in an uncleared map after I just popped the Legion, and I answered to somebody on Discord. He got his answer, but I died in the map because obviously I'm gonna die to the rares. But yeah, that's the second death. And with that, this build is insanely tanky for a very quick map. I did daily Legion Expedition. I didn't die once to Expedition. I only died once to Legion. It is very powerful, and it still clears insanely fast. I did like 2.5 minutes from runtime at most, and then about 30 seconds to a minute at looting. Just ridiculous mapping speed. But yeah, so this leaves us with the other gems, because I did drop the totem setup, and you already saw that I have my Berserk here, but what are the other things that I have? So, for my Aura setup, I needed an Enlightened level 3. This is so I have enough mana to cast my spell, and so I can use the Sniper's Mark on hit, with also Enhance, because this costs some mana, that I always have the mana to use it, or to apply it. I then have an Enduring Cry here, and the Berserk, as well as the Steel Skin. The Steel Skin on left click is going to have a 2.5 second downtime and a 1.5 second uptime. Because of the normal quality, it has a bit less downtime, which is a nice thing to have. This is just a bit better. I tested it out in PoE, it is better than Molten Shell, and it is better than Immortal Call, so I went with Steel Skin. Then I have Enduring Cry, Berserk. Now the setup allows me to press my Berserk, have it run down, just going to wait it to run down. It's going to last quite a bit, but eventually my regen cannot keep up with the consumption. It's going to run down. I press Enduring Cry. The cooldown is 4.24 seconds, and the moment it's over, my rage is filled, and I can instantly press Berserk again. So outside of this 4-second cooldown, I have a Berserk that lasts for about, I think, 10 seconds. I never actually counted it, but as you can see here, it lasts quite a bit. And in a map, I just press Q, W here and there, and I have Berserk for the entire map. I really like this new setup. So the other things is the Aura setup, my level 21 Arrogance with Precision Vitality. This allows me that I reserve about 45 to 48%, 49% of my life. This means that I have a little bit between 50% and above, and actually unreserved life, which means that my Leech can only heal me up to 50%, and then comes in my Leech, Instant Leech, and what thing is going to be buffered. So my Instant Leech in my life and hit instantly applies, fizzles, because it can't actually give me anything, but my normal Leech, it just stays there because it's technically there because I'm not at the max life that I can currently be at. And the moment I get hit, it applies again, and I Leech again, and I'm good to go. Making this build really tanky. Again, combined with the things mentioned before. The other setup is still the same frenzy setup, but on my bow setup, I actually replaced my Awakened Greater Multiple Projectiles with an increased crit damage, because, I mean, I already have 10 projectiles. I get additional 2 from Dying Sun. I don't need GMP anymore. I just grabbed more damage and it felt really good. Now, for this rage setup, because this is really the only thing that I changed on my gear. I finally rolled my helm. It now has some life regen, some life, and a spell suppression roll. I at some point rolled my quiver and ring. I don't know if I showed that yet. The ring just is double stat chaos res. I wasn't, at the moment I bought the ring, I wasn't that liquid, so I didn't bought an amethyst ring. I bought a coral ring instead to get some more life on this build. And I luckily rolled chaos res, so that was nice. And then on the quiver, I just went with a basic quiver that I always recommend: bow damage, life, open suffix, additional projectile, crit multi, lightning damage. And yeah, that's it. Now for the flask, finally. Because I'm using the Mageblood, the regen craft, to cover the life regen that I need for Camp Spirit, this is something that in this iteration is locked behind the Mageblood, but however, I don't like to lock my build updates or my recommendations or my guides behind a very expensive build, so there are 2 alternatives that you can do to get the life regen into the build. The one that I do not recommend, it exists, if you can make it work, wonderful, but I can't recommend it, is Immortal Flash. Immortal Flash, replacing your build, sets you, show it here, at 685 regen in my current setup. If I apply the Mageblood, I'm at 630, so we need about 600 life regen to make the rage regen with Enduring Cry be the permanent Berserk setup. The issue with this is, right now, I have my resistances covered with this. You would have them covered somewhere else, you would have some resistance rolls on your gear, and it would look okay, but the belt gives you minus 16 resistance, and also the belt in an Omni setup before Mageblood or Headhunter is usually a synthesized belt with percentage in intelligence, strength, or dex as an implicit, and then a stat roll plus resistance roll as a suffixes. So the belt slot is very important for this build if you use a Mageblood, or if you don't use a Mageblood, if you use a Headhunter, or if you use a rare belt. So I can't really say Immortal Flash is the way to go. Instead, you can use a Kikazaru. Now, depending on the state of your build, you might need to replace your Death Rush with this. You would lose your Adrenaline, you would use attack speed, you would lose the increased damage, you would lose the movement speed, and the fist damage reduction, which is a bit sad, but it gives you all the regen needed to be able to use the Berserk, which is as good, if not better, than Adrenaline. So I would say that is the better iteration, and also you can get percentage, intelligence, and strength or dex implicit, meaning you even get a bit of percentage stat, giving you some omniscience again. So this is the way that I prefer. If I would do the setup without using a Mageblood, I would definitely use the ring. And that's really all there is to this upgrade. Hopefully the video was interesting, and now you too can adjust your setup to Rage. If you're wondering why you should swap it to Rage, as you haven't, if you might have skipped to this stage, Berserk gives you a lot less damage taken, gives you more damage, more attack speed, more movement speed. It's a really great buff to have. I think it's better than auras that we can get on this build, and we can combine it with a defensive aura setup to be extremely tanky and still clear maps extremely quickly, and that's why you should do it. All that being said, have a wonderful day, and if you have any questions, if anything was unclear, feel free to message me in the comment section on my Discord, over DMs, or over the designated channel on my server. All that being said, have a wonderful day, and goodbye!